everyone. Welcome to Lynchian Picks on Coffee Nick's Movie Picks, a coffeehouse collection venturing into the dreamlike world of David Lynch films and black, damn fine coffee. You are listening to the introductory episode of Lynchian Picks, where I'm going to talk a little bit about what you can expect from this series, what is this series, and for those of you who don't know, who is David Lynch? First of all, first things first, if you're listening to this episode, I want to give you the biggest thank you. If you're listening to this episode, that means that you are subscribed to this new Patreon page, which kind of has nothing on it. So I want to thank you for just being here at the very start. It really means a lot, and I cannot wait to get this started. I've tried a lot of different and new projects with the show, with Coffee Nick's Movie Picks, and a few of them have stuck around, a few of them have not, after I realized they weren't quite fitting into the show very well. But the Coffeehouse, the Patreon page, this is something that I've really been thinking about for a while, and I've really been excited to start. I've really wanted to find a way to get into these niche topics, and I think that the Coffeehouse is going to be a great way to do that. So if you're listening to this episode, if you're subscribed, if you're a regular member, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it, and I can't wait to get into these collections with you guys. And I really can't wait to get into this David Lynch series. If you're wondering what the Coffee House is or what this Patreon page is, there is an introductory episode out now, so be sure to find that if you'd like to know a little bit more about this. The first thing I want to say about the Coffee House, and this is something that I'll say in probably every introductory episode that I have on the Coffee House, is that these are all beginner friendly and they're also expert friendly. So if you know nothing about David Lynch, you are welcome here, and this is for you. If you know everything about David Lynch, you are also welcome here. The point of these is to be an open discussion. This is not kind of like an explainer YouTube video or anything. I want this to be a casual conversation where we can maybe take away something we didn't know before. One of the great things about David Lynch films is that because they are so obscure and cryptic, is that they are endlessly discussable. You could really talk about these films as much as you wanted, and there would still be something to say. Same goes for watching them. You could just keep watching them and keep finding something new. If you have never seen a David Lynch film before, I think that this series is a great way to start. You could follow along step by step and watch every single one of his films. I'll talk about this later, but we are starting from the very beginning, and every 2 weeks there will be a new episode going over a new one of his films. So this is a great way to kind of work your way slowly through them and have a way to talk about them, quote unquote, talk about them week after week. For those beginners out there, you may be wondering who David Lynch is. If you already know that, just stick around for a minute or two. But for those of you who don't know him, David Lynch is an American filmmaker and artist known for his films such as Blue Velvet, Mulholland Drive, and The Elephant Man, and his hit television series that he co-created with Mark Frost, Twin Peaks. Lynch was born on January 20th, 1946 in Missoula, Montana, and he grew up in a variety of American towns such as Durham, North Carolina, Boise, Idaho, and then Alexandria, Virginia. In his early adulthood, Lynch pursued painting while living close to Washington, D.C. He later moved to Boston, then to Philadelphia, where he discovered his passion for filmmaking after seeing a vision of wind moving the images on his painting. With his debut film being Eraserhead, Lynch was promptly recognized for his creative, original, and surreal storytelling, which continued on throughout his career. Lynch is considered to be one of the greatest and most original filmmakers ever, with his films even warranting the creation of a new word, Lynchian. Lynchian is defined in the Oxford English Dictionary as, quote, juxtaposing surreal or sinister elements with mundane, everyday environments, and for using compelling visual images to emphasize a dream-like quality of mystery or menace, end quote. The films of David Lynch explore the concepts of dreams in conflict with reality, hope and fear, and the dark side of the American dream within the genre of horror. While often deeply disturbing, his films are also overt in their sense of humor, and at times they share an optimistic outlook on life. The parallel tones of Lynch's films speak for the parallel themes of America and for our own lives. And most importantly to our discussion on this collection, the comfort and warmth of black coffee is a consistent, returning theme in Lynch's works. David Lynch is an artist who refused to explain his work to his audiences, leaving us with many unanswered questions. This means he also left us, though, with the power to create our own interpretations and meanings of his works. Personally, this is one quality about Lynch which I deeply admire and appreciate. While his work is challenging and frustrating to interpret at times, it's never uninviting. By refusing to give answers to his own work, he gives all of us the power to have our own answer that is just as right as everyone else's. I believe that this is what being an audience to any film should really be. Later in his life, Lynch was dedicated to meditation, his paintings, and music. As a proud and dedicated smoker his entire life, he was unfortunately diagnosed with emphysema and passed away as a result of the Los Angeles fires on January 16, 2025, at the age of 78, just 4 days before his 79th birthday. Talking a little bit about my personal relationship with David Lynch's work, I have not seen everything. I have not. I'm not an expert on this material, but just like many of you, I am going to be taking that journey with this collection. I'm going to be taking it step by step. I've seen a lot of these films multiple times, but some of this is uncharted territory for me, which I'm really excited to get into. But my first introduction into Lynch's work was with Twin Peaks, of course. Early in high school, I was introduced to the first 2 seasons. This was within the year prior to Twin Peaks season 3, The Return happening. Probably, it was trending again because of The Return. And I started watching Twin Peaks and I was just absolutely in love with it. And it was actually when Lynch left the show that I lost interest a bit and I never finished it. But I returned to it later. This was after I graduated college within the past 2 years. I returned to Lynch's films again. I returned to Twin Peaks. I watched the whole thing. And then I started experimenting with a little bit of his other films, Eraserhead, Mulholland Drive, Blue Velvet, and I really fell in love with a lot of his works. But most importantly, I fell in love with Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, which is one of my favorite films of all time. I would say David Lynch is one of my favorite directors of all time, right there next to Greta Gerwig. I just love the way that he makes movies. I love the symbols. I love a lot of the themes that are in a majority of his films. I love the actors that he consistently works with in his films. I love the balance between deeply disturbing horror, but also really great comedy. There are just so many things to love in his films. And I really think that there is something for everybody. And I feel like that the horror isn't there to like scare you. The horror is there to communicate to you, if that makes sense. We're already getting philosophical about this, I guess. But that's how I fell in love with David Lynch's films. So I hope that if you have not watched one of his films before, that you can find your own way into all of these. And like I said, while a lot of his films do have very disturbing content and are very horrific, I think that throughout this collection, I would like to make the argument that a lot of his films are very hopeful. There are a few that do this more obviously, like Blue Velvet, but there are also ones that I personally will be making an argument for as being very optimistic films, such as Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. I think that's one of my hotter takes. That film, the whole content is very, very dark, but I think that it has this silver lining, which is very hopeful. And I'll explain that a little bit more in those future episodes. Getting into what is this collection a little bit. So this collection, it is a part of the Coffee Nicks Movie Picks Coffeehouse Patreon page. This is the first collection that is a part of this page officially, and it will be covering the films of David Lynch. This is going to be a 10-part series, so there's going to be 10 full episodes. That is not including this introduction, a finale, and whatever bonus episodes I decide to do. And I talked about this in the introduction to the Coffeehouse episode, but these are going to be released every other week on the off weeks from the mainline show. So follow along on the social media if that's too confusing. I know I'm going to get confused and consult social media. But in each of these parts, I am going to break down David Lynch's films and sort of go scene by scene in a way and ponder what they mean over a lovely cup of black coffee. Because black coffee is such a strong symbol in Twin Peaks and a few of David Lynch's other films, I want this collection to also highlight just plain black coffee. There's not going to be any creamer, any sugar, and any of this coffee. It's going to be coffee as black as a moonless night, I think is the quote from Twin Peaks. More specifically, what will Lynchian Picks cover? So like I said, all of the main films from David Lynch, but there's a lot more to David Lynch, as I said. He's a painter, a musician, he created a TV show. There's a lot. But I am just going to be focusing on the films here. And that includes films that have already been on the main Coffee Nicks show. I'm going to review them again in sort of a different context. I'm going to make them a part of this larger discussion. So if you've already listened to those reviews, tune in again if you want something new. They're going to be completely redone, not reused at all. When it comes to Twin Peaks, if you have listened to the main show at all, you know that it is my favorite show of all time. And it's going to be very hard for me not to include Twin Peaks, the show, on this collection. So we'll see about that. We'll see. And I'm even rewatching The Return right now. And by the time I finish The Return, the way I'm pacing myself, it'll be at just about the right time to review it on this collection. So we'll see. We'll see what I can do. I would love to talk about it on here, but honestly, it's such a large discussion that could be its own collection in and of itself. So for now, all I'm promising are the 10 main feature Lynch films. I'm also holding space for the documentaries about David Lynch because those are really good too. I don't know. We'll see where the night takes us. What will Lynchian Picks definitely not cover, though? His paintings, music, and most of his short films. Because David Lynch has recently passed away, I do not want to go headfirst into all of his work. I would like to leave some of his work undiscovered for myself so that I can discover them at the right moment later on in my life. This is specifically speaking of his short films, which there are a lot of really good ones, some of which I've seen before, but I do not want to go through every single one and talk about it on here. I would like to leave little pieces of David Lynch's work for me to discover later in life. So please respect that, but go watch those yourself if you're curious because they all look great. In this collection, what can we expect to talk about and learn? So the first thing I would like to say for this discussion is I would like to just issue a content warning. A lot of this collection will be covering themes that have to do with sexual assault, sexual violence against women, and sexual abuse. This is a recurring theme in a lot of Lynch's films, which we'll be unpacking as we get to those. But I would like you to know, and I'll also repeat this in the episodes that have this content, but I would like to say in this introductory episode that is something to be aware of moving forward, just in case you are sensitive to those topics. But I'll let you know ahead of time. Other things we can expect to talk about, though, are the symbols that are recurring in a lot of David Lynch's films, such as the color blue or fire or cigarettes. What do all of those mean? And of course, Wizard of Oz. That is David Lynch's favorite film, and it is a, at times, intentional or unintentional inspiration in a lot of his films. So we'll talk about how Wizard of Oz sort of connects these as well. And of course, we'll also have individual interpretations of the movies because they are all unique in their own way. And I'm happy to announce there will also be special guest interpretations of the movies. So get excited about that. I can say right now there is a special guest on the Blue Velvet episode. And I'm hoping on the Lost Highway and Mulholland Drive ones, there will also be a special guest. So stay tuned for that. Very excited. What do I want this collection to be? So like any collection that will be on the Coffee House, I want this to be an open discussion. I want this to be food for thought. I do not want this to be an explanation of all his films. Like I said earlier, this is not a YouTube explainer video. If you came here because you'd like my thoughts on what the answers are to all of his films, this might not be for you. But hopefully my points that I bring up or my thoughts on the film may lead you to your own answers and conclusions. So I'm simply on here presenting what I think. And like I said earlier on, David Lynch is a filmmaker who refused to answer anything about his films, which leaves there to be basically an endless amount of interpretations. So you certainly could have your own, and you most certainly will. So if yours is very different from mine, that is completely okay. And I encourage you to send in that interpretation. Dear Coffee Nick will be something I continue on the Coffee House on a case-by-case basis. If someone sends something in, we will, of course, talk about it. So if you would like to send in your interpretations, your thoughts, your questions, your reviews on any of David Lynch's work, please send those in using coffeenicksmoviepicks@gmail.com or just by DMing me on social media at coffeenicksmoviepicks. And I will be happy to put them on their respective episode. So yes, yeah, that's the introductory episode pretty much. First episode and schedule of releases. I'm just going to go down the list and talk about what we have coming up. So 2 weeks from now, on May 22nd, I'll be starting off Lynchian Picks with a discussion of Eraserhead. Then on June 5th will be the discussion on The Elephant Man. June 19th, I'll be having my second review of David Lynch's Dune, Lord Help Me. On July 3rd, it's the review of Blue Velvet with a special guest. July 17th, we'll be talking about Wild at Heart. July 31st is Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, my second review on that film. August 15th is Lost Highway. August 28th is The Straight Story. September 11th is Mulholland Drive. And September 25th is Inland Empire. And all of these dates are very, very, very subject to change. As you know, I like to switch things around a bit. And also there may be bonus episodes sort of scattered in there, so just be ready for that. But the big important day is 2 weeks from now, May 22nd, for Eraserhead. I will see you there. Once again, I would like to reiterate, please send in any questions or thoughts that you have about any of David Lynch's films to coffeenicksmoviepicks@gmail.com or on social media. And if you are a beginner to David Lynch's films, follow along with me. Let's have fun. Let's talk about it. I would love for the beginners to watch the movies with me as these episodes release and send in their thoughts. And we could talk about it during the Dear Coffee Nick segment. That would be really fun. But that is it for this introductory episode. Like I said, I am so excited to be getting into this. This is going to be great. And I've been waiting to talk about David Lynch's films on the show for a long time. And I'm so excited that I finally have the outlet to do that. So thank you for listening to Lynchian Picks on the Coffee House Patreon channel. Before you go, please consider becoming a regular on the Patreon Coffeehouse for only $3 a month, which will grant you bonus content on here and shoutouts on the main show. If you'd like to stay up to date on the show, please follow at CoffeeNicksMoviePicks on Instagram and at CoffeeNick on Blue Sky. If you like what you heard, please drop me a rating and tell a friend about the show. Oh, and one more thing. Wagon Wheel Watusi.